Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Dirt. And today's topic is Coco Coir versus peat moss and potting soil. I'm pretty excited about today's topic. And at the end of the video, I'm going to actually have a little bonus topic discussion if you guys can hang in there for that. So, first of all, I choose Coco Coir as the base of my potting mediums, and you can use peat moss or regular potting soil, but I'm going to talk about why I choose Coco Coir and the benefits of it. So what it is it's the natural byproduct of coconut harvesting. So it's the fibrous material that is between the outer shell of the coconut and the inside, so that, you know, the outside of the regular coconut that we're used to seeing. And it comes in a variety of forms, not forms, but like sizes more. You can get bigger, chunkier pieces for like orchids specifically. I like this mixture because it's more closely resembles like a soil, and where I use it instead of soil, I like the size of this mixture. This is an amazing product for aeration in your soil and water retention. So I don't know if you've noticed those that use peat moss. I have this where when I go to re-wet it, if it has dried, it doesn't absorb well. It kind of just runs off the pot, and I have to be really careful and really slow about watering it. This one re-wets really quickly. It retains the water, but it also retains the oxygen levels in the soil. So it's gonna prevent overwatering and root rot and a lot of those issues that can arise in just regular soil and peat moss. It also has a life span, I guess that's the word you would use. Let me say this, it biodegrades 4 times slower than peat moss or regular potting soil. So both of those have a lifespan of roughly 1 to 2 years, where Coco Coir is 4+ years. So it's going to last you way longer. You're not going to have to top dress as often, and it's just, you know, it's not going to biodegrade nearly as quickly as those other ingredients. Another great thing about it is it's naturally weed-free, and it inhibits pathogenic fungus from growing in your medium, which is something that I honestly really struggled with peat moss. No matter the brand I used or whatever, I always got specifically that yellow fungus, and it makes me crazy, which in turn made fungus gnats more of an issue, which a lot of people in research cite that they don't have issues with fungus gnats with Coco Coir. And that's not saying that they can't live in this or thrive, but they generally don't, because, you know, maybe that's because it diminishes the actual fungus in the soil, so they don't have as much to live on. And I use roughly like 30 to 40% Coco Coir in my mixtures for my tropicals and aeroids, and a little bit less in my other mixtures. But there's a really great article from Mark Dimmitt of the Tucson Cactus and Succulent Society, and I'll actually link that below for those that want to read it, because it's really interesting. But I am going to quote a couple things from him from that article that I found really interesting. So he's talking about Coco Coir, and he says, "After 4 years experience with it, I have concluded that Coir is by far the best of all around organic potting medium that I have ever encountered," which is pretty huge because he's been growing for, I believe, like 30+ years. So it's pretty awesome. And this is when he switched to it, which I believe the article, I'm not certain, but I think it was back in 2005 or 2008 that he wrote it. But another thing is that another result is that one can grow larger plants in smaller pots. The apparent reason is the root distribution within the media. With peat-based and other tight media, the roots concentrated around the inner surface of the pot. In Coir, the roots are abundant throughout the medium. This is likely a result of the superior aeration provided by Coir. So that's a direct quote from his article. And I just think that's pretty amazing. I've noticed great things using this, but it's pretty awesome to research it and just see. Like, he mentioned a lot of people who grow solely in Coco Coir, which is surprising. I didn't really know that when I started using it a while ago. So it really is a great ingredient. One of the other things versus peat moss is that peat is mined from peat bogs, as I understand it, and it only lasts 2 years, where this is a natural, sustainable byproduct and it lasts much longer. So, you know, I feel like that's a good reason to use it too, is that it's just a more sustainable product as well. One thing to keep in mind with this is that it does have zero nutrients in it. So you will have to supplement your plants, which I feel like you should be doing anyway. So for me, it's not a big deal. I've talked about the worm castings, which are a great way to add in nutrients that you need to. I always mix the worm castings into my soil mixtures, as well as doing the tea to add ingredients. So if you're doing that, that's not going to be an issue, but you will need to be aware of it if you're not fertilizing your plants, that this has no nutritional value at all. So it's not like a soil or whatever that's going to have some things in there to keep your plant going. You will have to feed it. But like I said, I feel like you should be doing that anyway. So, you know, which brings us to the next topic that I wanted to talk about. And going back about worm castings, I had quite a few people ask me how often I use those. And I forgot to mention that in the video, and I apologize, but I use mine roughly every 2 to 4 weeks. But what to keep in mind is that it's not a fertilizer. So you're not going to run into issues like you can't use a household fertilizer every week or you're going to burn your plants. It isn't a fertilizer. It works better than one and acts as one, but it technically isn't one, if that makes any sense. So you're not going to run into issues with fertilizer burn or doing it too often, or I do it through the winter because I feel like, I mean, you reduce your water, so you're not going to be giving it as often anyway, but it's not like a fertilizer in the winter that would be harmful to your plants. And then also, someone asked, I actually had a lot of people, including my husband, go, wait, you use distilled water? Doesn't that negate any nutrients that you need for the plant? And my answer is, like I said, I'm not an expert on water, but our water here is pretty heavily treated and has chlorine and a lot of salt and a lot of other things that aren't great to give to your plants. So how I combat that is I actually used to use Super Thrive, which is a well-rounded nutrient, but I actually started using Newt, that I have mentioned in a couple of my posts, and it is a complete nutrition ingredient, and I actually really love this stuff. So I switched completely from using Super Thrive to this to see, you know, if I liked it as well and if it worked, and I have noticed way more growth in all of my plants, and the one thing I was waiting to really, you know, say I liked this was transplant shock. So Super Thrive has always been very helpful in preventing transplant shock with my plants. So I have these two that were rooting in water, and I just potted up, and they had zero signs of shock, like none. There was zero drooping. They're both very perky, and they're both growing immediately. So usually when I switch from water propagation to soil, it's always like a period where you kind of hold your breath and wait and see how it does, but these just took off. They did great. So that was one reason I was waiting to really share how I felt about the Newt, is I wanted to see how it did with transplant shock, and I just hadn't had anything to experiment on. But these two have me sold on it. So I'm not pushing that, like, I'm not getting anything for saying that. I'm just sharing that is the vitamins that I put in my water, and with that and the worm castings, that's why it doesn't matter to me that Coco Coir doesn't have any nutrients, because I add them in anyway, so it doesn't really matter. One thing to keep in mind when you order it, depending on what one you order, so I have one in my Amazon link, which you don't have to shop from there. I do get like a very, 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 very small amount of purchases, so I'm being totally upfront and honest with that. But the one I've used there, it is like about this big. It's a block, and you want to get it wet, and then it will expand. And that tiny little block overflowed this container. So I've used a lot of it. It didn't all fit in here once I got it wet, and it expanded, which, funny story about that, the very first time I had gotten it, I didn't realize that's what you did, and I was like, this is a very weird product, and I kind of like chipped it off the block and then put it in my mixture, but then when I watered the plant, my potting soil was like out of the pot. So do get it wet, and it will turn into the mixture that you need it to. That was silly me. So hopefully that answered all your guys' questions on Coco Coir and why we want to use it instead. If you have any questions, let me know. I do choose to use it instead of soil or peat moss for all the reasons I've explained, and I've been really happy with it. I switched quite a while ago, not completely, but now, you know, this last year or so, that's all I've used. So I really like it, and hopefully you will too. And yeah, that's it for today, I guess. So thanks for watching, you guys, and we will see you next time. Bye.